Okay, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get started. So this panel is Designing for Data, the Data Quality Foundation. And I know there's other panels going on, so thank you guys for coming to join our discussion today. So what we really want to address is that there has been this promise of data and analytics for utilities, but sometimes these analytic platforms, they don't have the right data. So building a data quality focused foundation can really help an organization better deliver more advanced analytics, and that's what we have these folks here to talk about, and I'll go ahead and introduce them. Right next to me we have Edwin Poot. He's the founder of Energyworx. Next to him we have Cherie Fuller. She's the vice president of retail for EDF Energy Services, and then over there on the end we have Matthew Spilman. He's market operations for Direct Energy. So thank you to all of the panelists for being here today. So to start this off, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then they'll talk about why they're here and why they're ready to talk about this topic. So Edwin?
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Edwin Poot. I'm from the Netherlands, but I travel like 50% of the time to the US. Last year, 180 days spent here in the US. So we have a large customer in Houston, and we develop software in a software as a service platform, helping our customers do more with energy intelligence, getting value out of data. And data quality is a huge topic there as well, and we're specialized in handling those kind of data sets.
Great, thank you. Cherie?
Hi, I'm Cherie Fuller, and I'm with EDF Energy Services. EDF Energy Services is the customer-facing arm of the North American branch, if you want to call it a branch, of Electricity de France. So we are not the Environmental Defense Fund, we are Electricity de France. So we focus on generation energy management services, third-party EMAs, and we have a large C&I retail presence. And so excited to be here. Data is our business, particularly on the retail space, and being able to manage it, being able to bring it in from all the different systems is one of the challenges that we face on a regular basis.
Great, thank you. Matthew?
I'm Matt Spilman with Direct Energy. I've worked in competitive energy markets for almost 15 years. Currently, I cover our market affairs and utility relations for our residential small commercial customers. Specifically, my focus is in the PJM Mid-Atlantic region.
Great, thank you. And of course, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Erin Hardick. I am a research analyst with Zpryme, so I'm part of this ETS team, and we're so delighted to have all of you here. So I'm going to go ahead and get things started. Cherie, I'm going to direct this question to you, but obviously any of the panelists are welcome to chime in. When you think about data quality and data analytics as it applies to your organization today, what is most important and why?
So when we think about data at EDF, it's got two prongs, two focuses. What is the data that we need so that we can manage our business internally? Pricing, forecasting, risk management. All the things that help us to make smart decisions so that we can, protect our bottom line. And then the second aspect of it is really what information do our customers need to have? What information do they need to be better, smarter, quicker, faster? And what systems needs to come in so that they can make the informed decisions that they need to make when it comes to their energy consumption, their energy needs, and then, of course, on the generation management side of the business, so that they can make the right decisions when it comes to their power plants.
Great. Matthew, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, those are great points, Cherie. I think I would say a lot of those same things, and I think for us too, it's all about the customer. It's all about the customer experience, and as it relates to data quality, that means a lot of things. It means getting our bills out on time. It means getting our customers on flow with us and enrolled, and when they're supposed to. It means making sure our welcome kits go out on time, making sure they're getting accurate communications and accurate answers to their questions about their bills. So the data quality issue is very important.
So Matthew, I kind of want to build on what you were just talking about. When organizations, they're looking to build these quality-focused foundations, what factors should they really be looking at?
Wow, yeah. For us, standardization of the data flows for us is important for us. I think, Direct Energy operates in over 70 plus utilities, in our Midwest, Northeast region, and depending on what state, what utility, there's different transaction protocol, there's different, there's EDI, there's non-EDI methods, and we have to adapt to that a lot of times, and so standardization, I think, for us is a pretty big key.
Great. So when they're going through this transition, what exactly are these organizations doing to replace? How do they replace these foundations that have been there already, Edwin?
So we see a huge change going on because of the energy transition, and I'm not only talking about meter data itself, but we think that adding context to data is important. Data becomes much more diverse. You're not only required to use data from your own systems in your own landscape, but you want to enrich it with context. You want to know what's going on. You want to make it make automated decisions based on changing data. Also, frequency is increasing. You mentioned already diversity around shapes, sizes, and formats after protocols. Those issues and those challenges are challenging the utility, and they have to implement like a data governance structure with maybe some master data management involved as well, to think about how they want to use the data, how they want to structure the data itself. And one of the challenges in that is that once you have that in place, you need to find what you can do with data. So I believe that the business is changing from more commodity-driven focus to data-driven focus. And so consumers demand more, they demand maximum choice and flexibility. So they just expect it to be there. So your systems or your solutions around data needs to be more supple in the sense that they can faster respond to those different types of changes. And if you look at the grid side, it's the same thing. It needs to be able to respond to changes in the grid fast and to detect anomalies and to take action on it. So I think data diversity is a very interesting challenge.
Cherie, do you want to go ahead and build on the challenges around data management?
Sure. For us, the diversity, speaking on both these guys, there are so many disparate systems, places where we have to get data that it's mind-blowing, So it's on the meter data side alone, like you said, EDI for some, web scrapers for others, going out to certain websites. Some are public, some are not. Passwords, digital certificate management. I mean, that in and of itself is a nightmare in most regions. So, managing the data, how many different systems that we have, where does that data all come in at, where is it housed, and how do you pull that information back out so that it's meaningful for the 75,000 different ways that you need it to be meaningful, right? Like, you need data for billing, you need data for pricing, you need data for forecasting, and all of that stems on, your historical, usage on the retail side. And then you also, for billing, to provide, forecast data back out to the customer, to have a platform, to have an app, to have something that you need, so that the customer can take some of that same data that you need internally in order to manage your business, that they can use also on their side. And that for us is really the largest challenge that we see, is making sure that every single piece of that is mapped and it's brought in correctly. And it's a huge undertaking. And especially when you've got a lot of manual processes to do things, and then you have some that are automated, but the automation works only for a subset and not for so you really have to look at this from a foundational level. What are you going to do? How do you start from the ground up, the data architecture, which I know you can kind of speak to have a platform of which to build that you can easily move that data in and out. And for us at EDF, we have an even bigger desire to provide information that is not just for our retail clients, but for instance, the Facebook of the world. So Facebook is a retail client. They're data centers. They also have on-site generation that we manage, and they have a PPA with a wind farm. And they want to be able to have, the schedule brought in from the wind, the on-site generation managed, and they want to go to one platform, and they want to talk to one person about managing that data, and they want to see all the parts and pieces of it. And so that's what we're trying to build, this, digital platform that enables our entire customer base, not just focused on one, to be able to have access to the data, as well as for us to be able to utilize that data to manage our business.
Yeah, Edwin, I'm interested in your view.
Okay. So what I was thinking about when you were telling this, what I see is very important is that it's not only about the technology itself and the data and the structuring of data itself. I think it's a utopia to think that you can have like one platform that does it all. It's more or less how you integrate those systems with each other in such a way that it becomes standardized and easy to use from one universal standpoint. Another thing is, I think it also has a huge effect on the business processes of the utility itself. They have to be changing as well. And when we work for a lot of customers that are experiencing this, they all say, well, now suddenly with this new platform or with this new technology, we don't need to do the business process like this. We can actually skip this step and go to there and have this fully automated. So it reduces their time they need to spend on investigating each data set. Especially since the frequency is increasing, more data is being involved, it's almost impossible to do that manual tedious work effectively. So they need a system that can does it automatically, or at least a solution, without having to turn over their entire landscape and have to reorganize everything, because some systems have been there for 10, 15 years or maybe longer. And they're still doing a good job. And you just simply offload those systems, harvest the data, harvest the metadata, and try to enrich the context doing that. So I think it's important to realize that with the newer technologies, and you mentioned Facebook already. So one of the things we did, we carefully inspected and investigated what those companies are doing with data and how they utilize it and what kind of architectures and technologies they are using and how they approach data governance. And we actually decided to do this approach similar to the adopted to the utility industry as well. So where, for example, certain established vendors are using data to store in one certain data model, which is very, let's say, canonical. We are more handling data flexibly, because you never know which protocol you need to support or which format you need to support. And you cannot just simply model your environment in a canonical model for all those different data sets. So if you approach it from a different angle, you cannot only process data faster, get more insights faster as well, but you can also measure data quality from during the entire life cycle, from ingestion of data all the way to the end, where you want to output it maybe for a commercial contract or maybe a load forecast or something. So I believe the key aspects of data quality lies in metrics and understanding the quality of your data during the entire process.
Great. So I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to watch the panel this morning, but Mary Powell Moore, she said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Why is it important, for people to understand this changing landscape? Why do they have to be actively part of this?
Look, I think, I think you guys nailed it, I think, with the theme of this entire summit this year with designing for energy. And in my mind, I start to think about the culture shift, and I guess sorry about that. I think, there's a lot of change going on across our industry in a lot of different places. I think it requires a little bit of a shift in mindset and creativity and thinking about how we tackle these different problems kind of in a new way. We have to kind of get creative about this stuff, and we think of this. We think of design, and we think of we think of stuff that happens on New York City runways and whatnot. But it really, for me, it really is it's a shift in the way we think about how we solve these problems. It's kind of coming to the table with creative questions, asking why, asking what if, what if we did it this way, and not being afraid to fail, to take some chances, take some risks. If it's not working, change course and be able to be agile and adapt on the fly and keep on trucking. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and to add to that, the where we're having to get the data that we need is they are not necessarily as interested in innovation and change as we might be. And so you're kind of shackled to a certain extent when it comes to being able to think about new products and new services in ways that you can pull data or product or things that you want to implement within the market, even if the market design might allow for some things, the utility mindset to a certain extent can be limiting, and that is definitely a challenge and can be a frustration as we want to think about doing things differently, if we want to think about doing things more quickly and changing culturally. We might be ready to change culturally, but there's a big part of our industry that's just not, and they're not incentivized to be.
Right, and I think that kind of leads into this next question I'm planning on asking. How does the position of an energy retailer really change looking at digitalization?
Okay, so I think, as I said before, they have to think about changing from a commodity-driven to data-driven kind of services. So they have to come up with new business models and concepts. I always say, like, if you ask me top of mind, energy will be free. So how does the business model then work? How do you make your money as a retailer? So I think thinking from a data side, and most of our customers are really experimenting with data. They prototype data, and one of the things they like best is that they want to flexibly prototype data, quickly test something out with as low cost as possible, and when it works, you want to deploy it at scale. So you don't want to invest again in another project or use expensive system to roll it out, and without touching, of course, all the other existing systems that have been around for 10, 15 years, because if you want to replace them all, then the project's too big to take on. It will take years. And I think if you look at the industry up till now, the speed of innovation is really, really low, because of most systems have been around for maybe 10, 20 years, and every version that they're running have been running there for maybe 5 years or 6 years or 7 years longer. So you need to be able to deploy fast and fill fast. That's our motto as well. So if you try something out and it doesn't work, you can quickly change it around and try it again, instead of doing a large project with maybe numerous features that you want to roll out, and then it fails after an 18-month project. Then you're back to square one. So deploy fast, fill fast. That's my message.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Edwin. I think, we're an energy company, but at the same time, we're kind of becoming more of a technology company too. I mean, I think a lot of retail suppliers are kind of shifting that way. I mean, I realize we're in the city of Austin, so I won't mention any names, but, when a new ride-sharing company comes along, for example, or, a new a home sharing company, there's companies that are, these are major disruptors of what's going on in the marketplace, and you think about those industries and those businesses that are doing what they're doing, and they're resetting the bar. I mean, they're redefining the customer expectation and that customer experience, and we have to be able to keep up with that, and it's a challenge. But how does the position change? I mean, I think that goes back to maybe some of that mindset shift where, I mean, we have to start thinking like those guys are thinking, because I mean, if we want to compete and we want to be the best at what we do, those are the guys. I mean, we're competing with those guys too.
So Edwin, you were just talking about, the speed of innovation. So how do we increase the speed of innovation?
So I think the mind shift is very important. You need to realize that without like daring to try something new, you cannot innovate easily. So, and of course, those existing systems are there to run the critical business, and it shouldn't interfere too much with those innovations at first. But you still need to keep up increase the pace of those innovations by just playing around and prototyping. So what I believe in is that all those systems contain maybe valuable data in itself, but if you can combine it, it will be even more valuable. So if you are able to offload non-intrusively data from those systems and explore that data interactively in an environment where you can actually deploy new prototypes and create new business models. And for example, we had a customer that decided to do a prototype with us, and they created a project, and we only connected like 500 residential customers. And they were trying out the system with this new model, with benchmarking themselves with peers, the energy data. They had like solar inverter data combined with meter data. Some of them had EV charging points at home, and they were trying to play around with it. And it was so successful that suddenly they scaled up from 500 customers to 50,000 customers and even more within a few months. And suddenly it was not a prototype anymore. It was running business. And that's what I mean with deploy fast, fail fast. If you deploy something, it should be production ready, and you should need a system that doesn't interfere directly with the existing systems. So there needs to be like an abstraction layer between. And you can think about it as a centralized view on your data that allows you to do those kind of things in a fast, turnkey way, so that you don't have to bother about the complexities around integration yourself. If you look at the rest of the industry outside of the energy sector, for example, like the Googles of this world, and we closely work with Google, by the way, so I'm not mentioning the name for nothing. So they're very good at enriching data with context. So they have a lot of different data sources available throughout their cloud environment. Of course, if you used to use the tools like Inbox, Google Inbox, the Inbox tool learns from your messages and your replies and your responses and gives you the best option if you just have to reply quickly on your phone. It uses machine learning to learn from your individual answers instead of like having like those standard answers that everyone uses but doesn't fit your need exactly. So they're very good at utilizing those different systems and standardizing those tool sets around it. And I think the utility industry should definitely look at those guys and make that possible to explore and to interact with the customers like that.
So I'm going to ask a pretty broad question. Who is responsible for driving this change, this speed of change for innovation? No one wants to take a shot at that.
I can maybe, because one of the things I believe in is that the customer will drive this. So yeah, the people will drive this. They require maximum choice, flexibility, and value, and you have to move with them. If you don't, then you lose maybe in the end. And even though the position seems safe right now from a utility perspective, there are other like disruptive companies around the corner that are trying new business models. And even we talked about that ride-sharing service. They're doing this everywhere, and you can block it right now, but in the near future they will be there as well. So instead of like fighting them, you could think, okay, what are they doing different? Can I change my organization around? And even though it shouldn't touch my existing business, I need to innovate and think disruptively as well.
So when we talk about building these data quality foundations, I'm interested in Cherie and Matthew. Maybe you can speak on this. Where exactly do you see value in that in the organization? What specific areas come to mind when you think about that?
I think from again going back to the two-prong approach. So we see value in you have to have good quality, accurate data in order to manage risk around the business on the commodity side. Accurate forecasts, the ability to accurately price, the ability to manage all of the different indices that would feed your models from a pricing perspective. And all of that data is very available. It's just a matter of getting it, bringing it in-house, and then making the best choices that we can with that data to feed our models. And then secondly, it goes back to the customer and what are the exact things that are most important to them. Now, on our side, we deal with large commercial and industrial clients. So they are not necessarily care about sexy things. They don't care about apps. If we've got, you know, a large air separator, you know, they really care about, you know, what is the lowest commodity price. They take that and then they divide it out to their clients. Versus some more of our more sophisticated clients who want to see more bells and whistles. They want tools that enable them to, you know, either make hedge decisions online or, you know, value their load over time to show run out of their hedges, things like that. So, but it all again starts with the core fundamental components of the data that come in the myriad of systems that you have to pull it from. And that is our biggest struggle. Like you said, you're right about utopia. It is utopia to think that you can have one platform that enables you to manage all of this data. It is about knowing the system limitations for where you're pulling stuff in from, and then integrating it in a way that will enable you to push and pull data. Because it's not just about pulling it in, it's also pulling it in, doing something with it, pushing it back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all great points, Cherie. I think, you know, value extraction. How do we, you know, we want to be able to, it kind of gets back to the customer again for us. I think, you know, we want to be able to develop new products. We want to kind of, you know, time of use products. If we want to roll out, you know, something new like a flat bill product or something like that, I mean, we want to be able to design new product and service offerings for our customers that empower them to make smarter decisions about their energy consumption. You know, that's where the data accuracy and the data quality comes in. I mean, we can't do that kind of stuff if we don't have access to quality data, and we need to have timely access to that data and be able to do things with that data much faster nowadays than we ever, you know, 10, 15 years ago. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff where, you know, extracting value becomes very important for us. And all of our, you know, the smart home, the smart home technology now, and we want to be able to provide our customers with better insights, better, you know, better knowledge, better education around how to make the best decisions for what they need.
So how do new technologies, you know, specifically machine learning, impact an organization's ability to measure data quality?
Okay, so instead of only looking backward at historical data, you also want to look forward and try to predict what's going to happen. If you talk about data quality and accuracy, most of the time you won't know that your data was not as accurate as you thought it was if it already happened. And then you have maybe already used that load forecast to do a deal, and then it went completely wrong. So I worked for an energy trading company quite some time as an enterprise architect, and one of the things that surprised me a lot is that all those systems that have been around for like longer time have problems with the timeliness processing of data itself. Sometimes it took like a week or 2 weeks, and they had to call that department, this department to get data from several sets, and then it got dumped on the desk of, like, at the time it wasn't called a data scientist, but more like an analyst, and he started working on the data, and then like maybe 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, he finally got something, but then it was already happened, like they're running behind, and then I think that what's important is that if they have access, real-time access to any data that they need in this process, they can achieve much more. They can reduce their risk. They can have a faster time to market for their purpose. So machine learning will help in the sense that automation of those processes, where that manually intervention of those traders or those analysts, tweaking data, investigating data, maybe modifying or maybe doing load adjustments, the systems can learn from those decisions. For example, if you can detect load shape and the trend of the load shape by decomposing time series, you can actually attach rules to it, and then machine learning algorithm can then train himself on that data, and the trained model can then be utilized on new data sets. And since it's running like daily almost, that machine learning model is like an unsupervised learning, it can continuously improve itself as you go. And what I always say to customers is, don't expect too much from day one, because the model needs to be trained. And then it improves, and then you can do much more with it. Another thing that's interesting, if you look at machine learning, for example, if you talk about anomaly detection or false positives, trying to discover, especially with load forecasts, you need a mechanism that is able to train himself on events happening. And events are happening, so if you talk about weather events and you want to correlate with weather, or you talk about social events or simply holidays that you want to take into account, that model can get more parameters and data sources into the mix and make better decisions for you without having to do it manually. And then you can benchmark the data later. One of the things we're doing, we were like adding noise to data. We apply the algorithms. We see if the algorithms can pick up the noise we added randomly, and then we benchmark it. And we can see, okay, how good did this algorithm work? And if most of you probably know the goal-seek feature in Excel, we can actually say to that algorithm, find the best data quality based on the parameters you have available, and then it just tries around different parameters and finds you the best model. If you had to do this manually, you would spend like maybe months with the entire team of people. So I think that's what machine learning can add to the mix as well.
Yeah. To add to that, that is the challenge, because in order to grow the business, in order to the size of the loads, it's growing in some areas and then shrinking in others, and that's just how the industry works. But basically, it's how do I get a customer that's sitting over here with Matthew to come over here to me, and that's the goal, right? I don't want his residential stuff though. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I just want his big guys. So what do I need to do differently? And that's what that makes us better and smarter, is looking at the people that we're sitting next to, and what are they doing. But going back to machine learning, it is when we serve just the very large commercial industrials, we don't have 10,000 customers. We have a much smaller number, so we can do some of these things manually. But as we shift our focus to say, okay, hey, Texas is where our bread and butter is, but as we, if we want to move up into the Northeast markets, well, they don't have 100 megawatt loads, in New England. It just doesn't exist. So if we want to expand into different markets, we're going to have to change the way that we look at our products, that we look at our customers, that we do things. We need to maybe start talking to channel partners in ways that we never had to do before, because we always dealt with direct, the direct relationship. As we change, though, what we're realizing is that the man hours that it's taking for us to do things the way that we always used to needs to change. And that's where, if we do go downstream, from the 10 megawatt and below market, which we had not historically done as EDF, we have to get smarter about the way that we're doing business. We have to change our mindset, and the machine learning, I'm just sitting there thinking of our load analysts and what they do all day, every day, and how much of that could be done by a machine, so that they're now doing exception reporting and exception analytics and not grinding through stuff on a day-to-day basis.
No. Yeah, so I'll be honest, machine learning is a topic that I frankly am just still beginning to kind of wrap my head around, so I don't know what degree I'll be able to speak about machine learning, but I mean, we're trying to figure out how to configure our systems to accommodate ETS17 changes for to accommodate aggregate net metering programs in the state of Maryland. So I don't know. I mean, doing something like that. I mean, automation for sure. I mean, the better. I mean, as much as we can automate and get better around, I think it's, VEE, the validation, estimation, and editing routines that kind of come in from our smart meter data. As best as we can automate that and ensure that data is coming into us. It's clean. We're getting clean meter reads. We're getting clean data that hasn't, there's a lot of points or places along the feed, from the meter to you know, the meter data management system, to the, you know, to the utilities billing system, to, you know, by the time that it actually comes to us, and there's a lot of places there where there's opportunity for that data integrity to degrade along the way, or for issues to happen. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, to get better, you know. Edwin, maybe we'll be calling you up for some machine learning here pretty soon.
Well, maybe I can add to that, because I know machine learning sounds like very complex, but the cool thing about the developments over the last couple of years is that machine learning becomes easy to use. Before the time you needed like specialized people to actually do this, like for mathematicians and people like that, but now it's just becoming available in a standardized way, which allows our customers not to only like apply it, even though they don't know anything about machine learning itself. You can simply use what's already there and just simply apply it as you would apply a validation rule, for example, in the VE process. And then the system does the rest for you. And I can mention them Google again. Google has built something in that allows like regular consumers like me finding my photos, or a photo of my dog or a certain location, and behind it there's like sophisticated machine learning going on. But I don't know it. I just make a choice and it happens and it works. And that's how machine learning should work. So I believe in ease of use, of course, and making it simple. If you go search for Google, you only have one search bar, you type something in and you find your results. That's how it should work. And I think the utility should focus more on their core business. And as you said before, you're not an IT specialist. The core business is totally different. And there are a lot of other solutions and systems and companies in the world that are actually specialized in that IT bit. Just use it, and that's that's the sharing economy. That's the as a service kind of economy that's currently happening, and then you can like how do you say that, benefit from the competitive advantage because of that.
Great. So we have about a little less than 10 minutes left now. So I'd like to open it up for Q&A. Are there any questions out there in the audience? Yes.
You want me to come up, or can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Mark Konya, and just address this question to everybody on the panel. Data exists in a life cycle. It's governed by processes. And certainly, you know, those processes benefit from post hoc correction of data, application, data quality, algorithms to that data to compute missing values, identify outliers, so on and so forth. That certainly has a role. But my question is more related to the front end of the process. And that is, when you create data at the very beginning, does it make sense to focus on standardizing the way that data is created, and then employing those standards in the organization to help ensure data quality? A good example of that was I experienced a problem with bills and bad addresses. Okay? And the difficulty was that we did not have standard address standards in our organization. So our contact people, when they open up an account, would enter an address, and it was just kind of willy-nilly, not really any governance or standardization to those addresses. We took that on as one of our first projects, data quality projects, and reduced, after that was implemented, we reduced the data defect rate by easily a factor of 10. And a good illustration was I was going to our CPO with a stack of undeliverable mail. So open up each one of these envelopes and count how much missing revenue this represents. So that started getting their attention and allowed us to obtain resources to move forward with that correction at the front end of the data life cycle. Thoughts, comments?
Yeah, in my past history, I was an architect. I always believed to do something as early as possible or as late as possible, not in the middle of the process itself. I believe in standardization, but it only works if everyone adopts it, of course. So from that perspective, I would definitely say yes, standardize as much as possible. But there's also a standard or a specification can be interpreted differently by different parties. And if you talk about implementation of the standard, there's where it goes wrong. So you still have to expect different versions of your standardized protocol, and you still have to make a system that can work with those different implementation of those standards. So you will never get rid of it completely, but I agree, I believe in standards as well.
Yes, I think for us, the moving forward with the business processes and defining what it is that we're looking at, because what I might be looking at from the commercial desk has to do more with the forecasting and the pricing and the forward looking. My risk manager has a different view that they need, and so making sure that groups are talking to one another within the organization is huge, because then the next step is the billing department and what are their business processes. So that's something that we have definitely been undertaking in the last 6 months, as far as, you know, what is exactly that you need and why do you need it, and instead of just thinking in your world about what is it that you need to start thinking, you know, pick your head up and look to the left of you, to the right of you, and say, okay, well, risk, this is probably important to risk. I know it's important to finance and accounting. Yeah, I think this is also definitely relevant to the invoicing and the billing side of our business, and how can we do that? And it does, it has to start at the beginning with the business processes, I agree.
Yeah, I think just real quick, I know we're winding down here on time. Yeah, standardization, we're always going to advocate for better standardization. I mean, some states and some utilities do this really good, really well. We have, you know, there's good transaction protocols in place. The utilities follow them. They actually do what they say they're going to do. In other states and utilities, it gets kind of muddy. You know, any time that we can, I mean, it's an area where, frankly, we'd like to see a little bit more collaboration among the utilities across the states, quite frankly. You know, let's get Pennsylvania and New Jersey talking a little bit more closely with each other, and how they do things, and, you know, what's working really well, and how do we replicate that, and how do we fall in line?
Yeah, a lot of outside forces at work as well, that it's not only internally do you need to left and right, but you have to deal with the outside forces for sure.
Right.
So we have time for one more question. If there's, right out in the back.
I want to echo that a little bit. Having recently deployed a green button standard, which I can only describe as the clunkiest thing I've ever seen. The fact that utilities are not coming together and actually working together to keep that standard up to date, it's 4 years old, which is a dinosaur in software, makes it hard for an outside vendor to actually innovate or even test or prototype even on a small scale. Because not having a real-time data feed makes it, you know, literally downloading or doing scraping, which you don't want on your system anyway. So the fact that utilities are not coming together and actually creating and maintaining this standard so that it can be used as an API is a huge problem for you guys, because you need to have that data available to vendors to be able to play with.
Why would they? You just said you want to steal a customer.
Well, I want to steal his customer, but it's the utilities that we have to work with, that we're both in the same boat. In fact, you know, we would come together and say, okay, hey, do we as an industry, from the retail side, you know, how do we work to try to push and facilitate change? And there are definitely organizations where we do sit side by side at the table to try to push and facilitate for changes in behavior of all of those outside entities that we have to rely on for what we need to do.
Yeah, there's places where that stakeholder process is run very well. I mean, Texas is a great example of it, and I think it's a bellwether case. I mean, Pennsylvania does a really good job. There's other states and regions where, you know, I think we could stand to improve a little bit. So, but yeah, sorry, I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, so we're wrapping it up here. If you guys could join me in giving these panelists a round of applause. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.